And it's lovely to have you here, Dinesh. It really is. We know you're very busy as you move around different parts of the world. So I really appreciate the next 45 minutes. We've got 20 minutes me introducing Dinesh and talking a bit about his journey, and then sort of 25 minutes having questions. So we're going to make sure we use the chat facility. Please feel free to use that. Introduce yourself. Tell us also who your favorite entrepreneur is. We're interested in having an open discussion here and making sure it's interactive. Dinesh's profile you're seeing there as they go through the slides, lots of exciting experiences to share, and ultimately this really successful story about growth. And one of the exciting things that we were going to talk about today is growth within the UK. And Dinesh has obviously been able to do that brilliantly with e-bookers and also with other investments coming down the line. But what can we share? What can we do to motivate each other to grow businesses? Because that's all about employment. It's about the public purse, and it's about, of course, for entrepreneurs making money. So that's our game. We are here on behalf of the WCIT, Worshipful Company of Information Technologists. It's a livery company. It's a fantastic organisation. We are a panel. We're a small group of that, the Entrepreneurship panel. And there's some examples there of some events which we've got on that you can come to at the hall. And the hall is just in Barbican. It's a great environment to meet people and to talk about what the WCIT is all about. That's entrepreneurship in the case of us, but also education, drinking and eating, fellowship, and charity. So those are some of the things that the WCIT is all about. But without any more time, there's a mute issue there that we need to mute somebody, I think. On behalf of Francis, who's going to ask the questions as we go along, and Dinesh, welcome to this fireside chat as we come into Easter. So Dinesh, we're going to talk a lot about success stories and your success story today. And I can tell you about a book that I've read, which is a great book, which I spent last week enjoying, and that was all about the journey that you enjoyed.
We can't see it.
Yeah, the journey that you enjoyed throughout the last sort of 40 or 50 years. Tell us what is important to you about growth and entrepreneurship and actually growing businesses.
Well, we all need to pay for our. Well, thank you first, Simon, for inviting me, and I'd love to do this sort of thing. So, talking about growth, I think if you don't grow, you stagnate. Plus, it gives you some sort of a sense of achievement that you've done well in a company you're running, that you're growing, and thus people appreciate it because they're giving you money to grow. So from that point of view, it's a good thing. I think that if the UK growth is pretty anemic, as you can see the GDP figures every month, every quarter, and that's not an inviting country. If this happens, people don't come to set up businesses because they can't see growth. There are various problems why there isn't growth, but growth is very important. That's the point.
It is important, and I go back to my childhood when I was growing little businesses, whether it be selling vegetables to my neighbours and making money, cleaning cars and making money, and then working on the beach in France, selling drinks and making money. But take us back to your sort of childhood and how your entrepreneurial journey started before you actually got stuck into being an online travel agency.
That's a longer answer than 3 minutes, but I will try. I was brought up in a well-to-do household, and things weren't difficult, but they weren't easy. My father was a civil servant, but he was doing well, and so I came over here to the UK from India in 1968. I went through university, and then I thought the world owed me a living, till I found out that no one cared about a university degree. and they just cared about what you could do for them. And thus, I said, I worked for a few companies, including IBM, for about 6 or 7 months. It just, I didn't understand, and I'm not a corporate animal, so I didn't really see where the butter was, which side of the bread the butter was, and all those sort of things, because I hadn't been taught it. And one day, I decided, and I won't go through all the details, to go into an 80 square foot kiosk in Elscourt Station. There was good footfall, they said, and put up a board and say, I'm selling travel, without knowing much about travel, apart from having been to a few countries. That's how it started.
I'm going to share this picture here, which is literally that kiosk. I mean, does that bring emotions to you as a person looking back? I mean, well, how do you feel about that?
It was a great place because it gave me the start I wanted. Now, if I had told people who were friends of mine at university or in India or whatever that I was in that kiosk, they'll say, God Almighty, how low have you fallen? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
It didn't matter because in the end, they only respect you when you can make money yourself.
And so travel at that time, you say that you didn't know anything about it, but for those people who are on this call today who haven't yet taken that leap into entrepreneurship, maybe they're employed or they're thinking about taking that direction, that's a risk. How did you view risk going and investing into that kiosk?
Well, the chap who owned it was the newsagent next door. And his daughter had tried to do travel and she wasn't happy, so she wanted to give it up. And he said, but I want £4,000 of key money, or it was 3,000, sorry, £3,000 of key money. And I said, what is key money? and the guy said, you've got to pay me to get this premises because it's a really great premises, So I said, listen, I don't have any money. Can I give you £1,500 after 1 month and £1,500 after 4 months? And he says, that'll do. So we made enough money in the first month by selling theatre tickets of people going by, and then going to Keith Prowse and getting a commission. So, so that gave me £1,500, which I paid him, and then that was it. Then we didn't look back.
You're on your way. Well, it certainly takes everybody back to those first days. If you have actually started a business, and lots of memories, some good and most good and some bad, I'm sure. But this whole thing of growth, you then got into a growth market with flight bookers. And what were the challenges in dealing with that growth? How did you adapt, or what sort of skills would you recommend for people who are going through a growth phase?
I'll just give you a helicopter view. I started in 1980, and by 1996 or 7, I had about 235 employees. So we focused on long haul and not the European things, the European cities that were being taken over by EasyJet and Ryanair and others, but they were later. But I went and did correspondence courses in travel, British Airways courses. So I did part 1, part 2, part 3, got to know a bit about, but then the rest was all EQ, going around to other travel agents, seeing how they worked.
Yes.
So when people came into our shop and I said, and they said, it used to be called Australia Land, Earl's Court, so Kangaroo Land. And so they used to say, well, what's your ticket to Sydney? And I would say, look up the book, and it was £2,000 or something. And they'd say, how can you do that when the guys on the other side of the station are selling it for 600 or 500? And then I suddenly knew that airlines were discounting through certain agents and not through all agents. And so I tried to find out the discount wholesalers. And that's how you live and learn.
Living and learning. And I think also looking at what good looks like. I always think when you're trying to get into a new market, finding those competitors that are doing a job well and copying them. I mean, was there much of that from your position of growing? Did you look at those companies and say, well, they're doing that well, and copy them?
Absolutely. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
you know, there's no ego when you're trying to make money. You know, you need
Yes.
to learn and you need to say, oh, I know everything. Oh, it doesn't work really.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. So in terms of the sort of stage coming to 1996, and God bless the internet and all those dial-up modems and things like that, was it obvious to you that you had to get on board that evolving marketplace and put your money in that direction?
Well, I traveled to the States through an organization called, I joined YPO, the Young Presidents Organization, and they have a lot of members in the States, and there was a 1 week university. They call it a university, but it's 1 week, and it was a tech university in San Francisco. And I heard, you know, people like, it was 97, 96 or 7. I had people like Jeff Bezos and Larry Ellison and others who came and spoke, and they said the internet is everything. But I also used to go for a 1 week course at Harvard Business School, and one of the professors said, it's in my book, but he said, ladies and gentlemen, do you know that the market capitalization of AOL, Yahoo, and Amazon is equal to the GDP of Kuwait, Zambia, and New Zealand?
Yes.
And I said, oh my God. I mean,
Yeah.
how can that be possible?
Yeah.
Because firstly, we didn't know what the GDP of these countries was, but it must be more because they've got millions of people living there, you know. And we said, hang on, we need to get this in. I need to be
Yeah.
on this bandwagon. That's how it started.
And there's a picture in the book of you and the London Stock Exchange trip with you carrying a rather attractive, I think that's a plastic tree, or is it
It's
a
a
real?
palm tree.
It's a palm tree.
It's a palm tree, but looks plasticky now. I've forgotten what
Yeah,
it was.
yeah, yeah. And so you're suddenly in this growth phase, massive growth phase, and your number of staff went from some 200 to what number?
2000.
2000. And tell us about the BPO side, the outsourcing, and how
Yes.
that worked.
Well, so we went through quite a few ordeals. For example, the internet bust. Sorry, we went public and we were opening offices all around. We'd raised $60 million, of course, $61 million, but of course, in hand, we got only 54 because the bankers, you know, the merchant bankers take 7.
Yes,
Or,
yes,
and,
yes.
and you don't realize all these things, but I was quite happy with 54 because I had nothing before. And we were spending money and really growing by opening offices all across Europe, 11 offices. And then and the reason we did that was we wanted a footfall of 300 million people, not a footfall of 60, which was the UK. And stuff like that. So, I mean, it's all in the book, but I'll tell you, as far as the BPO is concerned, we decided to do all the back office functions, not only in the offices we had, because we had emergencies, but in India. And we connected the Indian office through satellite ticket printers, so they could print tickets for each office. As they were 4 or 5 hours ahead, depending on the time of year, when we walked into our offices at 9 o'clock, we had a stack of 400 tickets already printed for our clients, or a stack of 200 somewhere else, you know, which was all done, and we leveraged that, of course, and they could just pack them and deliver them or post them or recorded delivery, whatever. And but that was only one thing that India did. As we were in Europe, Indians didn't really speak Swiss German or Finnish or Norwegian or whatever. And so what we did was we advertised on our websites in Europe. for 5 graduates who would like to come and spend a year in each country, a year
Yeah.
in India. And I remember Finland, we got 150 people wanting to go to India, and we only wanted 5. So, I mean, what we did was we said you'll be getting Indian salaries, which are lower. We'll give you free accommodation. We'll give you free transport to and from work. And of course, we photographed. We had houses next to McDonald's, so we could get the McDonald's and the house in. So they said, "This is where you'll be staying. So if you want."
Next to McDonald's.
So they were quite happy.
Yes, good.
That's what happened. Well, we had about 60 Europeans who were answering calls in Finnish and Swiss German and German, and so on and so forth. And it was seamless, really.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, I know the question's going to come in about sort of 7 minutes. We're wrapping up this part. So please make sure that you put any questions for Dinesh, and then we're going to invite Francis back to ask those questions. But tell us about the whole emotional journey of selling your baby. You know, you've grown this business. It's now got a big valuation. It's going to be a life-changing amount of money for you. How did that feel to go from that kiosk to a life-changing amount of money and actually selling the business?
Well, I'd learned with the internet bust that things don't keep going up. And I mean, they could go even further up and be great. But I personally, by the time I sold, I had about just over 40% of the company because, and I worked out Expedia and Travelocity and all the big companies were coming into Europe and into the UK. For example, I was spending 18 million pounds in marketing. Expedia was spending 90 million pounds in marketing. So to me, the writing was on the wall. Either I, get up to 30, 40 million. I was ducking and diving because I knew the travel industry better than they did in the beginning, but I knew that they're going to learn and I'll be taken out or the valuation would go down. So I sold. And I was
great time.
Selling, yeah.
You were happy. You felt like it was the right thing to do at the right time, and then you went on to philanthropic approaches in a number of charities. What gives you the most pleasure about those charities? Because I know you've put in your book.
We give 120,000 people free medicine through 15 clinics. We give 1,200 kids free schooling, and we've been doing this for 18 years, both those charities. I give a lot of money to education in the UK. Those two are in India. I've put up 3 fellowships at Cambridge University, one on design, one on, Apple is a design company, so is Dyson. The second one on astronomy and applied maths. And the third one is on computer science. And I just feel that we need more scientists. Although I never read science myself. I was an art student.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you a bit about science, but only because I spent 3 years studying it. But let's not go there. So you've done all this charity work, but you also had some time in politics. Any scores out of 10 for the government at the moment that you want to just share?
Well, it's very difficult when you lose 450 million clients, which are the European Union, and you ask your businesses to grow. It's impossible. Why do people pay so much rent for Oxford Street shops? They pay because there's footfall. We've lost 450 million people 450 million people footfall. Yes. And we're being asked to grow. Then we were promised that we would do a deal with the United States, who just told us go to the back of the queue. And the deals we did with India and Australia are really one-sided. They're better for them than for us. So I'm just, whether it's a Conservative government or any government or Labour government, I'm not a Labour supporter, nor am I a Conservative supporter, but I can tell you this, it's very difficult for them. But that doesn't mean that they can't do a better job. Of course they can. And I think that they should have more people who've made money or been in business who understand where the bread is buttered for the country to be in government. Well, most of them are career politicians and don't know much about what's going on, really.
Well, you've certainly got an eclectic range of pictures in your book about people you've met through your journey of politics with the European Parliament. And I think that just shows something of your nature, which is always exploring. So you're now exploring investing in solar power, as we wrap up on the last question, before we get some questions for the audience. But why solar power, and where does this go, this investment you've made?
Well, when I was in the European Parliament, which was only for 7 months, by the way, before we Brexited,
okay.
Everyone's talking about green energy and green and CO2 and all this sort of thing. And I'd invested in land in Romania. So I have about 360 hectares. Multiply that by 2.5 and you get acres of farmland. And I'd also invested in forests because in 2008, when the world was coming to an end financially, I thought at least I'll have some land to grow some food, etc.
Yes.
But that passed, and I had this land, which I was getting a bit of income from farmers and everyone else. And I said, well, why don't I plaster this with solar panels? It'll increase the value of the land. It'll increase the value of the project. And then I did that, and then we went into BESS, which is battery storage. So solar PV with battery storage. So I'm doing that. I have 4 projects in Romania. To give you an idea, my 4 projects could support all year round a population of 500,000 people. Electric, wow. With electricity, yes.
Yes, it's interesting, isn't it, your vision for things and your ability to take risks, grow businesses, and it's so important, isn't it, to have people like you and others influencing us as a country. So, there's a sort of entrepreneur's journey on behalf of Dinesh in 20 minutes, 25 minutes. But what questions have we got? Perhaps, Francis, you can kick us off with a question from the audience or yourself as we go through the next sort of 20 minutes of our time today.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Dinesh. We have Martin and Dujon. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. We have 2 questions, and I particularly like the first one, where Martin is saying about how your wife played a very big role in your business, and he would like to just understand about the journey and how that helped you to where you are now.
Yes. A lot of people say you shouldn't go into business with your partner or wife or husband because you'll only fight or whatever it is. I think that it's absolutely vital that that your partner and you are aligned so that you don't have any problems at home or for holidays or for kids or anything else, because each one knows what the other one's doing and they are doing it for the family. The second thing is that your partner is better than an employee, doubly better than an employee.
Yeah.
And any money that is earned is coming back home. So from a cash flow point of view, terrific. And there might be partners who say, "Oh, I won't go into your business." Well, that's not a great partner. You've got to, when you're starting a business, you've got to have a great partner.
Yeah, I mean, the book just does bring out that point about Tanny, and I love that quote on the first page: "To my wife Tanny, gatekeeper and true believer," because I think she was identified as somebody who's very good at controlling costs. When growing something, costs are very important to control. And that belief, if you don't have that support and that belief from people around you, whether it be mentors or whoever, you lose confidence, I think, as an entrepreneur. Would you agree that confidence is a big issue there, Dinesh?
Absolutely. And you always are going to get lows, and you want to be boosted because you're going to get your shins kicked in all the time. But you've got to keep going, and it's a unit, a family. So that's why it's worth having your partner.
Yeah,
So
lovely.
Dinesh, did she join you from day one? And number one question.
Yes.
Number two, thank you. What about when you started raising a family?
Well, we had one son born in 78, and the second one was born while we were doing this. But that doesn't mean that because we're raising a family, we can't work.
Yeah,
And
precisely.
yeah, yes, she joined from day one.
Did she often tell you no? And did you listen?
Yeah. A lot of times we discuss things, obviously all the time, and slowly, you see, and then we rang up a friend of ours who was doing nothing at home and said, "Would you like to come? We can't pay you, but come when there's no customer, which was most of the time. We'll have a chat. Otherwise,
Yeah.
help." And
Yeah,
then after 3 months, we started paying her.
Brilliant. I'm going to move on to the next question here from Dujon. And he said his question is all about scaling the business. So you've obviously taken money, a lot of investment, and then scaled from a massive amount of people in a short time. What are your top tips for scaling a business? And I mean, he wasn't very specific, but I would like you to answer maybe in thinking about maybe a startup business, maybe a mid-sized business, and a large business, if that's okay.
Francis, now let me give you some figures. eBookers, I was running eBookers for 5 years. First year was 100 million of sales, 300 million, 600 million, 800 million, 900. Sorry, 8, 9, a billion. Is that 5 years? Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So that was the sales. The number of employees went from 0, or me, to 2,100 by year 4.
Wow.
So in the beginning, well, I did have 230 people in flight bookers, but we started separately because we wanted to show the world that the bricks and mortar side and the online side are separate. The thinking is separate, etc. After a year, we bought flight bookers because they had all the deals with the airlines and the hotels and the car hire companies. And so we were buying from them as an internet company. But then we said, I think it's better if we're vertically integrated. So we got those guys coming in, and they were pretty much happy listening to us, even though they'd worked for me for 10 years or whatever it was, or worked in a bricks and mortar. But because of the online euphoria, they wanted to learn everything about the online. Of course, we were making money 24 hours a day, but shops are only open for 8 hours a day or 9 hours a day. So suddenly you tripled your window for money.
Yeah.
How did I used to know the names of all the employees, and of course when we were about 20 people, their partners, usually their kids, and we used to be quite close. And then we started taking 15 people a week into the organization, and then we had to have some pigeonholing, some things. We had to have supervisors who then reported in, and I had 7 reports. My personal assistant was very important, the finance director, the HR director, the IT director, the managing director, who's my wife, I was CEO and she was MD, sort of thing. So there were 7 of us that we sorted, that I just spoke to, and I didn't. Of course, I knew lots of people, but I was so busy. I mean, working 12, 14 hours a day, because we were learning. We were the first, so no one knew what's going to happen. So we were learning. So it was a blank. Like I used to hit the pillow and just zonk off. You know, it was, and then the next morning again.
Yeah.
Did I answer that question?
You did? No, absolutely. There's so many more questions coming in now because I like it to expand, but I need to stop so that we can move on to some more questions. So, Ula, that's the next question that's come through. She's first of all, she thanks you for your inspirational story and the insights for Mr. Dhamija. I hope that's right. And apparently it's his birthday tomorrow. So wishing you happy birthday.
Thank you.
And the question here is, you know, knowing what you know based on your current journey as an entrepreneur, if you had to start from scratch again, what would you do differently?
Well, I have I have money now, so I wouldn't be bootlace stuff, but I would try and you know, use other people's money, not my own. Yeah. If possible. I mean, you can show money, but you don't have to use it. That will be one thing. The other thing is, I'm looking at what's happening with AI, and it's exactly what was happening with the internet when I got in. And AI in the States is way ahead of AI in Europe and anywhere else. But so that's one thing that I'm looking towards. The second thing that I'm looking at is longevity, because I'm growing old. I need to grow old healthily and not be in bed for 5 years and then, you know, pop off. So the health bit is absolutely, and things are happening there. For example, well, I won't go into detail. Sorry.
No. Please continue.
Okay. All right. So at the moment, drugs and medicines and, you know, hospitals, etc., are keeping people alive for 5 months for every year that goes by. Right? So, but this within 3 to 4 years, because of AI, will move to 1 year, 1 month in 1 year. So this is called the longevity escape velocity.
Interesting.
And now, obviously, you want to stay as healthy as possible to enjoy life, but it'll be going from 1 year, 1 month onwards. And anyone, for example, born today will live over 100 unless they come under the bus. So, you know, and I can carry on talking. So.
Dinesh, thank you. I read the same thing the other day. It says someone who's born today will live to at least 125, which is insane. So Habib was asked another great question, especially because we see this a lot at delivery. It says, if you're a young person starting out, you know, what advice can you give, especially around taking risks?
Well, I'm a risk taker, and that's why I lose a lot of money also, you know. But you've got to make money first before you lose it.
Yeah.
Otherwise you can't. I also think, you know, travel is a very good, not travel agencies, but travel and going to other places and doing some lateral thinking of what you learn in other places and doing here is very good and very important. That gives you a lot of ideas.
So a follow-up question on that is, do you need to make money or do you have money to make money?
No. You need to, everyone's a middleman.
Yeah.
So you buy from someone and you sell to someone else. Even bankers, everyone is a middleman. Yeah. And they're getting paid because they get your money in and then they lend it out, etc. So how can you improve the person you're selling to? Sales is everything, by the way.
Yeah.
Without sales and cash flow, you can forget a business. So how can you make life better for the customer who buys from you that they can't do it themselves, or they don't want to do it and they'll pay you for helping them? That's all that matters.
Next question.
So how much? Sorry,
Yeah.
just quickly then.
Sorry.
How much did you start your kiosk with? What sort of amount of money did you have to invest right at the beginning there?
Zero.
Zero. Yeah, it's fantastically inspiring for people who are thinking about opportunities of growing a business. Not everybody will end up with a six.
What we did was we had friends, and each one worked in offices, so they got all the stationery and everything from there. That came in. Then we had friends who would say, "Okay, we're going to a takeaway or something. We'll bring you something." So, and someone said, "Oh, I can do the carpentry. We can't pay you for the carpentry of making a thing. We'll pay you over a period of time." And so it went.
Yeah. Where there's a will, there's a way. Let's. How much time do you have left, Simon? Because I've still got a number of questions here.
7 minutes.
7 minutes. Okay, let's go. So Ford Adrian is saying here, could you please expand a bit more around the technology behind e-bookers? Number one, was your strategy more to outsource some of the services versus insourcing? And what were the challenges involved with either strategy?
Well, no, we were insourcing, and I had a brilliant German software programmer, and he was very good at coding in Perl, P-E-R-L, which was a software. And I remember when we had 588 people on our website at the same time, our website crashed. We had to rewrite the software, and during which we used to be answering phone calls. Then at 1,770, it crashed again at the same second. So we had to rewrite it again. And then it didn't crash after that. We used to get 3 million people a month coming in. We had problems with technology, for example, the application servers and the servers and the communication. So anything, if a server, if an application server is full to say 20%, thus 80% free, we had to change, because suddenly it would fill up and jam people who want to get in. So stuff like that. But in those days, technology cost a lot of money. Now, of course, it's a SaaS model, software as you use it. So the point is, it was much more difficult. But then the entry points were also difficult for people.
Yeah. No, it's funny you should just mention about SaaS, because Mark Wallace came up with a good question here. He says here, what do you think of the supposed coming up to the SaaS apocalypse due to the nature of AI and vibe coding, essentially where anyone can launch a SaaS platform with little or no tech team? How would your business moats change in the future due to this?
Well, I don't know which business exactly he's thinking of, but a SaaS platform means it's like an insurance premium. You keep getting money every month. Yes, you improve your software as you go along, but you don't lose clients unless you're terrible. So you're always gaining clients. And that's why SaaS is very good. I would always do SaaS if I could. And I think it takes a lot of money to get a new client.
Yeah. No, it does. And what's your view on, especially on a SaaS model where you're selling things online, would you do a monthly rolling contract, or would you rather try and go for longer term contracts?
I think monthly is good for the customer too, because they know that they can kick you out, so you better be good. And thus you keep improving the software. And that gives them confidence.
Last question here. Unless people have more. This is from Sybil. He says, "Hi Dinesh, thank you so much for sharing your insights. You touched briefly on health and well-being, a very important topic. What is your advice for taking care of ourselves as entrepreneurs, maintaining a balanced life, and when we have a very busy schedules?"
Well,
and just for 1 minute, if that's okay, on this one, Dinesh.
yeah. Well, it's important as you grow older. You know, you need to be healthy. Otherwise, you just slow down, and that affects everything. And it's only one part of your body, one biomarker that has to go, and the rest of the body dies. So you know, it's very important. So food is important, and exercise is important.
Thank you.
So basically, wrapping up now. I put in the chat facility a link to the events for the WCIT. There's an awful lot of things going on out there within WCIT. I'm also going to put my email address if you do want to follow up with any questions. Feel free to make contact. But throughout the book, I was inspired by this part at the end, Dinesh, which I'm just going to read out to people. As a virtually penniless immigrant in a foreign country in the middle of a deep recession, I built a business and made £100 million, employing more than 5,000 people along the way. I hope this book has given you some insight into how this happened, what succeeded, what failed, and gave us competitive advantage, and the thought process behind it all. A prosperous future depends on millions of people building their own enterprises, getting off their haunches and creating something new for themselves and society. And I just thought that was very inspiring. You know, and I think that you bring a sense of honesty to this, that you've created this incredible business, employed a lot of people, and I'm sure people have even been around the world, perhaps on tickets that you've sold them or been on holidays. And you know, inspiring journey, Dinesh. Thank you very much.
Well, just to complete that, sorry, Simon. In 2004, which was the full year, last year that we had, we sold 1.6 million passengers, air tickets to passengers. So anyway, thank you, Simon. Thank you, Francis. Thank you, listeners, for listening. And hope to see you guys at WCIT.
You will.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.